preliminary hearing tomorrow in courtroom H with Magistrate Judge Susan Strohmeyer conducting the hearing here. And with us to talk about the whole movement of Justice for Cello, the coalition, and the folks that we reintroduce Deonte Cooley, who has been with us before. Deonte, good to see you, sir.
Likewise.
Appreciate it.
Back on.
And an old friend, Craig Woodard, Sr., making his way to cold Erie from warm Tampa. Good to see you, Craig.
It's great to see you too, Joel. Really
oh my gosh!
Thanks for having me.
All righty, so. Again, let's share because we did a little bio on you, Deonte. Share your bona fides. You know, you're an Erie kid.
Yeah, I grew up in Erie. Went to St. Patrick's right down the street. No longer there, but
that was at school at St. Patrick's.
Yeah, St. Patrick's,
okay.
The Shamrocks. We
wow.
played basketball. Man, we were good, man. Back in the day, yeah. And they closed, I believe, a year or two after I graduated. Went to Mercier's Prep. Was on a state championship basketball team in 1991, my junior year there with Kyle Horton and the guys. And then I ended up, I was on the first football team at Mercier's Prep. I was the first Mercier's Prep graduate to play college football. Played at Mercier's University, broke some records, rookie year, freshman year, ECAC Rookie of the Year. And graduated from there. Played for the Erie Invaders as well.
Neat.
The indoor football team. And
what's it like crashing into one of those dasher boards?
You know, it hurt. It did hurt. And
hurt.
you know, the weird thing is that when the Erie Otters would play during the same season, we were actually, it was like carpet on the ice. So we would get down to stretch out and everything, and it was cold and everything, but it hurt. It was hard, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love those 50-yard passes, right? Touchdown.
Right. It was a blast.
That's amazing. And right now you are involved. You're the executive director of the Down Syndrome Society down in Tampa.
Yep, Down Syndrome Association in Tampa.
Yeah.
Yeah, my son was blessed with Down syndrome 11 years ago and changed our lives. You know, we got this little angel here, and how do we navigate life, you know? And so my wife and I decided to become advocates and start an organization. This February 23rd, we'll have the DSAT BOB open for 8 years.
Wow.
And we offer free speech therapy, occupational therapy. We have art classes. We throw galas. We do all types of different things for the families, and everything is free of charge.
Well, and it's in your roots coming from Erie, considering the Barber National Institute and their incredible impact, right?
You know, growing up, we always heard about the Barber National Institute, and unless you have a family member or friend that has special needs, you don't know how they can impact your life in a positive way unless you get close to them. And when you have a child with special needs, everything kind of changes. Like I don't like when people use the R word. It's offensive. You know what I mean? And back in the day, you didn't realize how offensive it was because we were ignorant. But I teach a lot of people, about that, about people first language, stuff like that. So it's very gratifying.
People first language. Now, that's a good one for me.
Yes.
Tell me what that means.
People first language. You're not described by your disability. So some people will say a special needs child. It's not a special needs child. It's a child with special needs. So you see how
even that distinctive makes a big difference.
Something little like that. It means something. And that's why, I always refer to my son and others as, he's blessed with Down syndrome, because it's a positive thing. I don't put a negative connotation on this. So many people think the first thing they'll say is, he has Down syndrome. Oh, I'm sorry. What are you sorry for? You should say, hey, congratulations, because that's what I tell as the executive director and president of DSAB. I tell the families, congratulations. You have just given birth to an angel. They have to know that it's a positive thing.
And they're just one more comment. It seems like the happiest people that you'll ever meet.
I'm telling you. I always explain it when I explain exactly what trisomy 21 is, what Down syndrome is.
That's a chromosome, right?
I'll explain it. So you have 23 chromosomes from mom, 23 chromosomes from dad, total of 46 chromosomes that people have that create your eye color, your skin texture, everything about you. Trisomy 21 is exactly what it states. A child blessed with Down syndrome has an extra copy of the 21st chromosome. So World Down Syndrome Day is March 21st, 3/21, right? And so that causes intellectual delays. They have weak center core, weak muscle tone. The tongue is a muscle. So speech comes a little later in life. They crawl a little later. They walk a little later. But they understand. They're very intelligent. They know exactly what you're saying. Sometimes it's hard for them to verbally express themselves. And it depends on the therapies that you get early on involved. So, I always explain that extra chromosome as a chromosome of love. Because you'll never meet an individual blessed with Down syndrome that doesn't want to give you a hug or something like that. It's fantastic, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
I just love understanding that, Craig, and understanding where that society is able to change and to grow with all of this, right?
Absolutely.
I want to make it clear before we start that you gentlemen are speaking for yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm speaking for myself based on my experiences, things that I've learned, went through, oversaw and heard, just pretty much why we do some of the things that we do in our plans to continue to do the things that we do. So I can only speak for my own personal interests, or I can only use my own voice to speak for the interests of some people who have asked for me to speak for them.
Okay.
Yeah. I started Etc. with the Woodards with my wife back in March of 2025, and we talk about a number of different topics. We talk about this, that, etc. Right, and that's why we call it Etc. And so July 2nd happened. It happens to be our cousin, and that ended up being a huge topic that we wanted to talk about. And Deonte and I I had him on as a guest at first. And I'm like, man, he's blowing it out of the water, man. And he's boots on the ground up here for me. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so every week, sometimes twice a week, we go on, Etc. with the Woodards, and we have a conversation with each other on camera so that people can hear what we're talking about. And we discuss the investigation and things and what we think. So it's definitely our opinions of everything.
Deonte, you had gone through the primary, the municipal primary, right, in May.
Right.
So literally a matter of weeks, July 2nd happens, the shooting of Cello. And did you feel that you had to activate? I mean, because, again, when you're running for office, you're civic minded, you're plugged in, you learn a lot during talk about that pivot, if you will.
So, I mean, honestly, me running for the office was more or less because of issues that took place. Not specifically that, but we have a community of individuals who don't get resources or who don't have access to different things. So it was more or less like, we running, I'm going to all of the forums, doing all the speeches. We're on social media every single day. Like, me and my team, we're brainstorming, we're having different conversations. So then we're also going to other people's forums, and we're also going to other places to get information. So I was already in gear as far as doing my civic duty on the level of, I guess, politician, for lack of better words. Because I ran because everything that some of these elected officials do, I was doing out of the goodness of my heart, without any authority or without any say-so or without any real connections within the Erie community to be able to actually provoke some type of change. So I decided, okay, if I run, then I'll have a support. I have the infrastructure of the city I have other elected officials to be able to make decisions as well. And then we get to May 21st. I didn't win. And then right after that, there was a situation that took place where ICE agents were coming into Erie and they were picking people up or, all of that stuff. So I had stayed in tune with what was going on in civics, and Rock Copeland had hosted a town hall meeting just discussing different issues related to ICE. As I was hearing these things, I'm like, Well, a lot of the things that these individuals at this meeting are discussing sound like a lot of issues that we have within our community. So it's more or less like, how can we expand on that? And it kind of like, then Marcello was killed like the following month. So it was already like we were active and had everything going. So it was like, how do we continue to pick up on that and let people know that these are serious issues that we're having? And it's to the point now to where people who are in positions of authority believe as though they have the right to assassinate us if we don't comply with what they have going on. And that's just not right for me or to me. It doesn't sit well with me.
Talk about, again, you said you started the podcast with your wife. Mm-hmm. You were discussing different things in the community. How much of that was Erie oriented until July 2nd, would you say?
Erie oriented, I would probably say I hit a number of Steeler fans because I talked about the Steelers a lot.
Okay.
Not San Francisco, I'm sorry, Deonte. But I talked a lot about the Down Syndrome Association in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
We talked about certain topics. Like I would bring up topics of, when I turned 50, I'm like, when you turn 50, why does everything hurt?
So again, kind of a lifestyle.
Absolutely. And then
what was the trigger on July 2nd?
The trigger was family member shot and killed. And Malcolm Pulliam was one that kind of got with all of us, where we kind of compare it like this. We were all on the porch and you see something happen and we were like, hey, we got to do something, And so that's how we all kind of got involved, and we strategize and talk about different things. And from that point on, I started to focus more on cello, and D was doing the same thing up here, and he was going to all of the city council and county council, and so was Malcolm and Cindy and Terry and Jerry and all them. And we communicate all the time, and we talk about different things all the time. And I was like, hey, you want to come on a podcast with me? He was like, I'd love to. And so got him on, man. And we, after the show, we were like, hey, I think we're on to something here. Yeah. You know what I mean? The views started going up. People started paying attention and really, getting a lot of substance from what we were talking about. And it was just a conversation between he and I, which it still is, And so we were like, let's do this again. And D said, hey, cuz, anytime you want me on, I'm on. And so he was guest, but he's co-host now.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, we talk about our schedules when we could do the show, especially if we got a city council or county council during the week. We might go on the following night to talk about certain things that went on and topics that went on there. You know what I mean? The resolution and things like that. Anything that happens, a protest that goes on or something big that goes on concerning Marcello Woodard, we get on and we start talking about it.
I want to talk about the impact of this podcast on creating this broad coalition here. I want to move on, though. I've got to take a break. It's Talk Erie. I'm with Craig Woodard Sr., Deonte Cooley here on a Tuesday on Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. 425. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Tomorrow is a preliminary hearing for the parole officer who is accused of shooting Marcello Woodard on July 2nd, 2025. Deonte Cooley and Craig Woodard Sr. are with us here. And gentlemen, we're talking about your podcast as really kind of a chronicling kind of where the community has traveled a bit. I mean, I think you're kind of been noting, like you said, the different speaking at council and what have. What did you feel, Deonte? What did you feel like the reception at council? And I'm going to preface this by saying there was one meeting that I got pretty upset about because I felt like city council was making the cello matter about themselves, and I thought that's not cool.
Right.
First off, you're not supposed to respond to citizens to be heard. You're not supposed to say anything. But if you're going to say something, let's have a little empathy going to the people that are concerned. I don't know.
Well, in the beginning, we all kind of thought that way. We felt that way at first because it was new. It was a trying time. Emotions were all over the place. So, first of all, the house was packed. So you had people who were attending a city council meeting who had never attended before. So behaviors were all over the place. Then you have city council members who have been there for quite some time who expect a certain manner of things to go. So I think in the very beginning of things, since the emotions were so high, we were like ramming heads with one another.
Right.
And I think a lot of ego got into the way of that. A lot of pride got into the way of that. But since then, we have been able to actually have talks with all of those city council members, and we have been able to build relationships and establish, like, I guess, a level of trust to where we all understood where we were coming from on that day. I believe I know exactly which meeting you're talking about, which was the very first one we attended.
Okay, yeah.
There was an exchange between Mr. Mel Witherspoon and myself. Mm-hmm. And at the time, again, it was just like a clash of lions, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
But over time, we've been able to resolve our issues and have a conversation to where I understood where he came from, he understood where I was coming from. But ultimately, we all understood that it was not about us as individuals. It was just more or less like, this is new. This is the first time it's ever happened in the United States for it to go this far. So it was like, what are we supposed to do? And we were out like, well, somebody better do something. And they're like, it's not our job. It's somebody else's job. So it was just
there's a frustration factor where basically city council could do a resolution and, say something happy, but not necessarily have any power. All the power resided in the district attorney and in the prosecutors and those that were investigating the case. But we were talking off the air that this is a test that the community is going through, isn't it, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, this has never happened before. This is the first time in the state of Pennsylvania a parole agent shot and killed a parolee. The second time in the country. And as of November, the case out in Fresno, California, no charges. So this is the first time in the country that a parole agent has been charged with shooting and killing his parolee. The first time in the country. If you look up this case in California, you won't find much out there. Mm-hmm. But if you pull up in social media, on the internet, Marcello Woodard, you're going to find us doing work and us advocating and us saying, this is not right. Right is right. Wrong is wrong. And we know when wrong is wrong. And we did not want to make this a white and black thing, even though the color is there. But if we did that, we would not have the support of a lot of our white friends out there. And so when you look at the supporters, the advocates right now, it's diverse.
It's a very broad coalition, and and when the charging documents were issued by DA Hers, I found it interesting that one of the first responses came from Mayor-elect Devlin, now Mayor Devlin, who again, everyone is hoping for a peaceful navigation of the justice system. We've got to go to our break. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. News is next. Chuck Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State, also live on YouTube and on Facebook. And speaking on their own behalf, we have Deonte Cooley, Craig Woodard Sr. The preliminary hearing is tomorrow in the Marcello Woodard case. Gentlemen, since July 2nd to now, it was a lot. It was painful waiting for the decision regarding the charging documents. When DA Hers, I think it was the 19th of December, finally issued charging documents and charging Kevin Seelinger with criminal homicide with no opportunity for bail, which a significant charges there. But let's go in that intermediate time. We had people on the street, some people at night when President Obama came. What was that, in October or September? There's people protesting.
Yeah.
Right.
With the bullhorn and what have you. Talk about that. Talk about that activation piece.
So what I will say is, like, every person who was involved, it was necessary, it was appreciated, because there are some people who are immediate family who didn't have the strength to do those things. You know what I mean? So when you talk about those times where we're going through pain, we talk about people like Shamel Henderson, who was Marcello's girlfriend, fiance, soon-to-be wife, like not having the strength to be able to do some of those things. Or when you talk about Shateria Major's mother, or, where you talk about some of his other children who don't even live in town, it was important for as many people as possible to make noise, and it still is, you know what I mean? Because it has always been peaceful. Peaceful does not mean quiet. Protest does not mean violent. And there was no violence, you know what I mean? When George Floyd was killed, there was violence in the city of Erie. Marcello's from Erie, and there was not even a napkin burned in the street, So when you see something like that, I think that attracted more people to join. I think that attracted more people to make noise, and then the message got more and more clear that we were uniting and we were seeking justice for this wrong killing of Marcello Woodard. But for me, I love the fact, because there were people who couldn't come to city council meetings or who couldn't come to county council meetings who had time to protest. There were people who didn't have time to go out to the Obama event, because they were doing other things. So I think that everything was strategically mapped out to where there's always going to be a presence. It may not be the same person every time. It may not be these four faces at this event and then that event, but it was consistent that there was a lot of people who were seeking justice for Marcello Woodard, and there were people who were willing to city council, county council, bullhorn. There was a town hall event. I hosted a town hall event. Michael Woodard had the Unity March. The Sisters of St. Joseph, they were doing their Take Back the Site. Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission, they came up and did something at the Art House. So there was just so many different organizations helping. There were so many individual people helping. And then we had people behind the scenes who couldn't really get involved because of, their working relationships or whatever. So information was being sent. So a lot of people who were in the forefront, who were doing a lot of speaking, we weren't just speaking just anything out of the top of our head. There were people who were behind the scenes, like, here's some information to follow up on. We have people like Cindy Lee Triber, who was she played a major role in a lot of things that we had going on, and she would, make sure she documented everything. I's were dotted, T's were crossed. We have people like Shannon Smith, who was letting us know, hey, make sure y'all safe out there. When do you need us? And, so it was different people who were very active in everything that we had going on and everything that we were doing, but that weren't present physically as far as in the forefront, like Craig, myself, Malcolm, Terry, Jerry, and some of the other guys. But it was just great when you have so many different people from so many different areas, Erie City, Erie County. You had people come here from Pittsburgh at one point in time. People came up here from Buffalo. We've been on national podcasts and episodes and stuff like that. So the noise is growing, and it's all been impactful. It's all been beneficial, and every person that has played a role in it all has been important, and it all has been appreciated.
I think a pivot point, a crucial point, Craig, and you understand this as a member of the media. When Attorney Ben Crump came to town, that had to be a significant threshold.
Yeah, it was huge for our community because he is America's attorney as far as how we view him. And it also strengthened the complexity of the case, of how important this is. Like this, you have Attorney Crump here. This is a national thing, and it needs to be a national thing, and it needs national attention. And that's how important it is. I don't think we could have done this under the circumstances any better than how this has been done. You know, we were from the beginning trying to control violence in the city, you know, and we kept telling city council, county council, we don't know how long we can hold the dogs back. Right. Yeah. So
there were probably a few people that wanted to mess things up.
A lot of people ready to roll, you know, and like Deonte said, you remember how it was when George Floyd died, and Marcello's from here. So I don't think we could have done any better than what we did. We were able to be the mouthpieces for the family, the immediate family that could take the time that they needed to grieve, you know, and some of them are still grieving, and some of them will grieve for a long time. Yeah. And we are going to be here for the long run because we won't stop. Because this, another important thing, this isn't just about cello. This is about change. This is about change in Erie, that cello, his name will not go in vain, because when he died, that is absolutely something that changed Erie, Pennsylvania forever. And we're going to make sure that change happens. And we have a lot of things that we're going to be involved in and doing and pushing for and advocating for. And cello was the start of it all. And we have a lot of great people behind us.
What do you think Erie, where does Erie need to learn about being a more just and uplifting community?
I think we need to be more empathetic and compassionate to all walks of life around here. I was talking a little bit. So the way Erie is structured is kind of like, because we're so small, everybody know who's who. So
yeah,
it's
one
like,
degree of separation.
Right. It's like, it's some people who you shouldn't mess with, and then there's some people who people can get away with messing with. So I think when we talk about uniting, we have to have uncomfortable conversations. And those uncomfortable conversations are going to strike up some emotions. They're going to bring out some prejudice in people. They're going to bring out some stereotypes and some bias in people. But the importance of allowing the conversation to continue is so that we can come to some type of understanding. Because you may not understand everything about me and vice versa. And I might have thoughts about your way of life, and you may have thoughts about mine. And if we don't talk about those things, and not to just pick one another apart, but to figure out how can we build from here, then we're going to continue to be stuck. But again, when you say 1 degree of, what is it, 1 degree of separation?
Yeah, like Kevin Bacon's 7 degrees of separation. Right. You know, it doesn't take much to have, my friend is a friend of Deonte's. Okay, absolutely. We're friends.
Absolutely. And the thing with that is like, we'll have that common friend, and let's say the friend in the middle may know, let's say we'll call our friend Josh. Yes. And Joel and Deonte have a problem with one another, but we both have a common friend. What that common friend won't do is sit us down and have a conversation, because
you want that friend to sit us down.
They don't want to rock the boat. Yeah, we need to have some people who are strong enough to be a mediator, to be able to sit and to have these conversations and to navigate us through. And I'm, trust and believe you me, I'm working on this myself, because I've had some conversations where I've rubbed people the wrong way, but I'm also allowing people to sit me down and say, hey, there's a different way to go about doing this, so let's come back and let's have this conversation again so we can have an understanding. And it takes mentorship. It takes education. It takes people to also model this, because we have some people in Erie, Pennsylvania who sit in positions of power or authority or whatever we're going to call it, and they don't get along with or have conversations with other people in positions of power or authority. So when we're all looking up, we're just kind of like, well, if this is how the powers that be act, this is how we're supposed to act. So it's more or less, it's going to take some role modeling. It's going to take some uncomfortable conversations. It's going to take some empathetic learning and empathetic discussion. So then that way we can all understand that we all have problems that we would like to solve. Because I don't think anybody who lives in Erie wants to live miserably. Nobody wants to have success. Nobody wants to gain, earn, or be righteous. I think it's more or less that we're so self-absorbed that I don't understand that you want the same things as me, so I'm so self-centered, and when you do something to get into my way, I want to attack you, as opposed to figuring out, well, how can Joel and I work together, because we clearly have a common interest. So once we start figuring out what our common interests are, and then we start having those uncomfortable conversations to build towards them, then we're going to end up being stuck. But what I will say is there are some people in the city of Erie who are willing to do these things. And then when we talk about the change in our administration, I've had plenty of conversations with Daria. I've had plenty of conversations with Christina Vogel, just about some of the things that we would like to see change. And they're open to having those conversations. They're open to hosting focus groups or whatever to get the information and feedback. Now, I'm not going to say that they're taking everything that we're saying and saying this is what we're going to do.
Right.
But to have an administration who's willing to sit down and take into consideration what you have to say, it says a lot. And then it also gives us an opportunity to have conversations with people who understand where we're coming from to say, okay, well, there's an opportunity for change. So let's kind of slow down on jumping the gun on finger pointing, and let's figure out how we can prepare ourselves for when these changes comes. We need to educate ourselves. We need to be repairing our relationships within our community so when this new administration does come and say, hey, guys, here's some opportunities for you all, we as a collective community can say, okay, we have 10 people who are ready, or we have 20 people who are ready, or we have 100 people who are ready. So in the process of all of this, we need to be preparing ourselves for those uncomfortable conversations. Because I can say to you, yeah, I want to have an uncomfortable conversation, but in the back of my mind, I'm thinking I'm finna just argue with him and tell him who he is. So, you know what I mean? We need to be thinking about that type of stuff as well.
Well, it occurs to me, too, that, you know, good places where these uncomfortable conversations can be had in a civil and life-giving way are in our churches, are at school, you know, with parent. I mean, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of forums, there's a lot of contexts where we could be on the positive side of growth. Am I being Pollyanna on this?
No, not at all.
I mean,
but then also think, like, when you say meet people where they are, because a church can be intimidating for me, but not be intimidating for you. Right. You know what I mean? A school can be intimidating. If I have a learning disability and you say, hey, let's meet at the school to talk, you've already insulted me.
I understand.
So you might need to legitimately meet me for a drink at happy hour. You might need to meet me in the barbershop. You know, I have plenty of meetings upstairs in the Brig. So I guess it depends on the person. Because you don't want to just call people.
You go to the Brig?
Yeah, very often. But you don't want to just be calling people to the church if, let's say, they don't believe or they're atheists. Or they have traumatic experiences.
I hear that.
So,
well, I'm just thinking, but even you were talking about your community.
Yep.
There, you need some folks need to get on the same page, and again, I think that would be silly for us to every African American should think the same. No, that's crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Not every Italian American thinks the same, or Polish American, right?
Yeah.
Weigh in on this.
This is what I think. I think that our city council, our county council, our school board members, our mayor, I think everybody collectively in the power positions need to get together and realize that systemic racism is a real thing. Once they have that uncomfortable conversation, then we can move forward. But there's differences in how African Americans are treated versus white people. And if it's not acknowledged by the top, it's not going to change. So everything that we're doing and talking about and doing, it could be for naught if they don't realize that it's a real thing. And I think that's where they need to start, is to understand that systemic racism is a real thing. I'm 51 years old going on 52. There's not a day that goes by that I don't see some form of racism. Wow. It's 2026, and I still see some form of racism. When's the last time you've seen that?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So it's still there. It's still prevalent, and our powers that be need to understand that, and they have to understand that we as citizens don't have the power to change that, but maybe they do. And it starts with an uncomfortable conversation to realize that it's a real thing.
So if they have that conversation, then what's next?
It depends. They have to go down the line and look at a lot of different things. Like you could look at treatment of African Americans with police officers.
Yeah.
That
is a very active conversation right now.
And there's clearly examples we can show that there's some differences. You know, you could start there. We've talked about policing relationships with the community. When have they walked the beat before? Back in the day, I used to see officers walking the neighborhood. You knew them by name. They knew us. You know, things have changed. You know, I've been gone since 2003. And things might be a little worse than when I left.
Wow.
And the other thing is we need to change how we raise our kids. this has changed so drastically that we could get in trouble as parents if we spank our children. We got the government raising our kids now. Whereas we would have gotten in trouble if we were playing football 3 blocks away from the house and you did something wrong. Miss Johnson's going to whip your tail, and then she's going to tell your grandmother, and your grandmother's going to whip your tail, and you ain't even made it home yet.
But I want to piggyback off of that. And the reason why I say that is because I believe, like, and not to discredit anything, a lot of us get lost in that conversation, and I've been talking about this a lot. What we don't focus on is finances and resources. And I'm not saying that once that conversation happens that anybody needs to give us money.
Right.
But we need access to resources. If it means how do you get yourself financially smart, or how are we putting this information in schools? Because, like, when I was a young kid, I was close to being a latchkey kid. So I didn't have conversations about balancing the checkbook. I didn't have conversations about taxes or real estate and stuff like that. So we as a community, when we are lacking certain things because of a system and our parents have to work harder, we miss out on educational conversations. And the most important one that we missed out on was finances, financial resources, financial literacy, and educating ourselves about finances. Nobody wants to be poor. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to have something in their pocket. Everybody wants to save for something. And nobody wants to just eat off of the government. And I think because of the way it is looked at, and when we say systemic racism, a lot of people feel like, oh, well, people of color just want to live off the government. No, we want opportunities to have prestige within our communities as well. I want my family name to be on the building. I want, when somebody says the Cooley name, that it means something, and it doesn't just mean activism. So that's another thing that we need to be talking about. When we have that uncomfortable conversation, realize and understand that there are people of color who are broke or poor, who, if they had a leg up financially, they will be able to accomplish their goals. Or if they were taught how to manage money or how to work money or what to do with money, they won't be better off. Like, we talk in stocks and investment. That's not something that was talked about in my household when I was a kid. Precious metals, that's not something that was talked about. Real estate, taxes. So those type of things are the conversations that we need to be focusing on a little bit more, as opposed to just saying the system is holding us down. Because, again, we don't want handouts. We want opportunity, and we want to be treated fairly once we learn.
You know, it's funny. I grew up on 18th and Myrtle, right? So I grew up in, we used to call it the spaghetto, right? and we didn't talk about stocks. That was the furthest thing from my dad's mind. I'm sure he had he had a pension. That's what he had, because he was a police officer. What we did talk about was education, and I feel like I think about your trajectory, going to prep school, going to college, making, what was your major at MU?
Communications.
Okay, and you were able to be a successful, and again, look, it turned into executive directorship.
Yep.
It's one of those, I think a dream major. But when you go to college, when education is elevated, my parents worked their tails off so that we could go to Catholic school.
So here's the thing with that, though, too. So my mother told me, all you have to do is graduate high school, and I'm proud. My football coach, Pat DePaulo, which is a family man who comes from one of those prestigious families in the city of Erie, said, no, you're going to go to college. So again, you know what I mean? Like, in our households, it was survival. Like you're saying education. So there are a lot of people in our community who think, okay, once I turn 18, I graduate high school, I got to leave my mom's house, go get a job, get my own apartment, pay my bills. We're not even saying, how do we keep our family tight and save money for our kids to buy property and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So college, yes, for some of us who had people around us to tell us college was the route, but understand that that's what sounds typical to you is like a fairy tale to some people where I come from, because if you tell somebody to go to college, they're going to look at you like you're crazy because now you're asking me to go into debt. But if I were to say to somebody, okay, now you turn 18, you're an adult, you can go to the street, here's something that you can sell to make some money, people will be all for it. So the narratives are different, because success to us looks like money and we don't know what to do with money. And to success to you, from what you said, is like education, so that way you can learn how to make the money. So again, college was a good choice. When you say Craig, he's private school and he'd grown up, the family structure he had, as opposed to the family structure I had, as opposed to somebody else. So education, it's very simple answer.
Well, I mean, Senator Scott from South Carolina, it's like magic. Again, it's not a panacea. It doesn't fix everything of society, but it gives you a chance. And we're all four of us are examples of that.
Right.
Here's another term that we have not discussed yet that would probably get us even quicker to success financially. And we talk about this. We have not talked about credit. That is not taught in schools. I tell you what, we were out to dinner the other night, me and a couple cousins and friends, and they asked me a question. I've been in after I left TV, I've been in the financial industry for 23 years.
Wow.
And I know everything about credit and how to improve credit, how to improve your credit score. I know that you can pay the same mortgage payment for a house that's $100,000 or $300,000, right? The same mortgage payment, but the interest rate affects the payment.
100%.
How do you get that lower interest rate to get that same payment to get more house, right?
Got to have the good score.
Credit, and I talked for 45 minutes, and those guys were just listening, and we need more of that, more counseling of that, along with everything else Deonte is talking about. That other piece, as far as credit counseling, is going to help these kids when they graduate, whether it's high school or college, be able to understand the value of money and how to control it and how to maintain it.
Well, thank God then for like Erie's Black Wall Street and even what Erie Bank is doing there on Parade. I mean, there's efforts underway. The community centers.
Yeah.
This is where it's at, because it's it's self-actualization, it's self-propulsion.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I mean,
right.
it's I guess it's bootstraps.
Absolutely, yeah. And there are some organizations that are doing great work. You know what I mean? And I think that we as people need to recognize that, and we need to be going to those places as well, because I know I did say meet people where they are, but we all can't have the mentality like some of us have to get up and we have to go find those resources and work.
Yes.
Because I know that they are available. I just know how difficult it is to navigate through those waters. When you talk about trauma, when you talk about confidence, when you talk about mental health issues and stuff like that, or self-esteem, a lot of people don't even have the courage to say, can you help me? You know what I mean? So we need to be educating our people on that as well. The help is there. Ask for the help. These are the places that you can go. And to some of those organizations, we need to be educating them on, hey, there are people who want your help, but sometimes you got to go knock on their door. Everybody's 100%. Not going to come to your event.
Got to be an evangelist.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I've got to wrap things up. Gentlemen, you're going to be in the audience tomorrow for the preliminary hearing. And again, we're just going to navigate this as a community together, aren't we?
And leave it up to God.
Yeah.
Leave it up to God.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Craig Woodard, Sr., Deonte Cooley, last word? I
was going to say we're going to do a big wrap-up and talk about a lot of things Sunday night on Facebook and YouTube, on et cetera, with the Woodard's podcast as well. So tune in for that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen.